After watching LatinGames' video about his thoughts on the current state of Slime Rancher 2, I felt inspired to share my own perspective on some of the missteps Monterey Park may have made and how they could address them. Let me be clear, I'm not a game developer, nor do I expect my ideas to work perfectly in a game. However, I hope my feedback can contribute to constructive criticism. My biggest complaint with Slime Rancher 2 is that it feels like it's recycling too much from the first game. Essentially, Slime Rancher 2 is Slime Rancher 1 with a fresh coat of paint. Think about it, the gameplay remains largely the same, NPCs are unchanged and serve no meaningful purpose, and the overarching objectives have not evolved. While it is common for sequels to revisit and improve upon aspects of the original, Slime Rancher 2 does not seem to push its gameplay mechanics far enough to enhance the player experience. It feels like Monterey Park is playing it too safe. Don't get me wrong, the setting and visuals are stunning. The vibrant landscapes of Rainbow Island are a joy to explore, with sprawling, colorful grasslands and breathtaking environments that showcases the studio's passion and creativity. However, the same praise is not extended to the gameplay. The Vacpack, for instance, undoubtedly iconic, but its functionality remains stagnated. It's primarily used for vacuuming objects, which feels underwhelming given the potential this tool has to add depth and variety to the gameplay. One concept that could be explored is inspired by a game called Island Saver. In this game, players clean up an island covered in trash by vacuuming garbage and gunk stuck on various surfaces. This mechanic would fit seamlessly into the Slime Rancher universe and could add a fresh layer of engagement to the player. If you're unfamiliar with Island Saver, it's available for free on Steam, and I highly recommend giving it a try. Back to Slime Rancher 2, another criticism I have is with the NPCs. It's nice to see the whole gang again, but the main issue is that they don't really do much. Sure, they give you free stuff, but that's about it. In the first game, NPCs allowed you to trade for extra cash and resources, which gave them a more functional role. Speaking of exchanges, let's talk about the Proto Market, a feature that I have mixed feelings about. Having a station to spend your new bucks is a fun addition, but the way the market is organized is confusing. Why are there two functions? Post-start provisions is useful for buying blueprints and variants, but once everything is sold out, it becomes pointless. Monterey Park could have restructured this feature by keeping two sections by giving post-start provisions a new purpose. Imagine it as a discount shop, not just for blueprints but also for general items like toys, renamed as the Coco Corner. Meanwhile, the other section, originally called the Coco Corner, could focus solely on toys and fashion pods, essentially becoming a slime-centric shop. I would even go further and suggest introducing a new toy category called Corel Decor, allowing players to place slime towers inside the corels. Like other slime toys, these slime towers could have favorites for each slime type. This feature would not just help reduce slime agitation, but would also add some much-needed personality to corels. It always felt disappointing that corels could not be customized in any meaningful way. Now, let's discuss potential improvements. First, while the setting of Rainbow Island is fantastic and its new areas fit the theme perfectly, the slimes are where things get tricky. The 6 new slimes, Betty, Cotton, Angler, Flutter, Ringtail, and Yoki, are great additions to the world. However, I believe Slime Rancher 2 could have benefited from focusing entirely on new slimes. Let me explain. The original slimes like Pink, Tappy, Puddles, etc. are classics, and seeing them in updated graphics is enjoyable. However, their inclusion in Slime Rancher 2 feels like a distraction. They should have remained in the first game, allowing the sequel to introduce brand new slimes with unique larticle combinations and behaviors. By bringing back old slimes, the developers may have prioritized creating hundreds of larticle combinations over innovating new species. Since the sequel's release, only 7 new slimes have been added, which suggests that the studio is more focused on recreating old content than building a fresh experience. Don't get me wrong, seeing new gadgets concept returning is fantastic, like the weather system and the water tower. If Marine Park wanted to introduce classic slimes, they could have done so through events or DLC, giving players a nostalgic treat without taking focus away from new content. The same applies to NPCs. It is nice to see familiar faces, but adding new characters would bring more world building to Rainbow Island. Imagine meeting an NPC who is a slime veterinarian, a politician, or even a fashion pop star. The possibilities are endless, and they could breathe new life into the game's narrative. Lastly, gameplay is where Slime Rancher 2 has the most room for improvement. As mentioned earlier, a concept inspired by Island Saver could work wonders. Using the Vacpack to clean up the tar gunk or pollution would not only expand its utility, but also add an environmental theme that aligns with the game's tone. Additional Vacpack mechanics like jamming or overheating and decoration could add challenge and strategy to exploration. Borrowing from Luigi's Mansion, Marine Park could introduce a numerical gauge for slimes, indicating when they're ready to be vacuumed. These ideas and many others show the untapped potential for enhancing gameplay mechanics. It is frustrating to see Slime Rancher 2 feel more like a copy of the first game rather than a leap forward. It had the opportunity to be the cornerstone of a bigger franchise with a more expansive world, more slimes to discover, and deeper gameplay. While the sequel has a beautiful setting and solid foundation, its journey feels tedious and repetitive. Perhaps the upcoming Green Lantern update will address these concerns. I can only hope for the best for the franchise. What do you think, fellow Rangers? Do you agree with the idea? Do you think Marine Park dropped the ball? Let me know in the comments. A huge shout out to LatinGames, and as always, stay weekly.